when Paul was housemaster of Schoolhouse, sorry.
This is borderline civility.
No, I did apologise. He had a time as a housemaster where a lad his father was a judge, who put some guy into jail or had him hanged or something. Anyway. Yeah, and there were threats against this lad's life. He was a day boy at the time, and he came to the schoolhouse for protection. And they actually had to put blokes out at night to make sure that there was no nonsense going on. So the life of a housemaster is not always easy. I remember in my particular time, there was a guy with a pistol who was in one of the maids' rooms. He wouldn't come out. He was pissed out of his mind, like most of you. And they came to me and said, "Well, please get this guy out of the room." And I banged on the door and shouted, and he shouted back, and I became quite nervous and called the cops. I remember Tim too having to go upstairs in Founders to quill some riotous guy who was trying to beat up one of the maids. So it wasn't all joy. But even worse than that, I remember my first year as a housemaster was John Peake's first year too. And as Tom Fair said once in his normally balanced way, he said at least John Peake and Basil Bey share one thing: they're both piss cats. But Mike Bailey, who's here tonight, was the head of house and school, and John Peake didn't really accept him. Anthony Mallett said, "Well, I made Mike head of school because he's a typical South African, and I want John Peake to realise what a typical South African is." He didn't appreciate Mike, and Mike didn't appreciate John. And I think it was the beginning of term, in fact, and Mike took some of the new boys down to the gym here, and they played some basketball, which I thought was a great way to introduce the guys to the school. Anyway, John Peake walked around. He used to take his dogs around here. And he came up the other side of Schoolhouse, where the lawn is, and the guys were sitting in the rec room watching television, and he lifted himself up onto the ledge there, and he put his head through the window, and he shouted at them. He said, "Go to bed, go to bed. What are you doing up there? Why aren't you working?" And he got very, very angry. Then he came round to the study, and I looked outside, and I saw him coming, and I knew something's wrong. And across the way, all of the tricks were in the at the windows there watching, and he came shouting at me, and he said, "What are all those boys doing? Why aren't they in prep?" And I said, "It's the first day of term, sir. So, there is no prep to do." But he was beyond reason, I'm afraid. And that set us off for a wonderful relationship.